Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In today's episode of Garden Ramblings, early December, just had a snow. We're going to tour the garden and just talk about what do you do now that it's December. There's not a whole lot to do in my garden, but I am starting plants indoors. I'm excited for 2024. After a snow, one thing you can do in the morning is come out and you're going to see deer tracks, animal tracks, different animals that may pressure your garden. You can see where they walk and maybe bolster up your defenses by just, seeing where the trails are. What's kind of cool, this is a 4-foot fence, and up close, I have very small squares here. Rabbits can't get into there. Different animals can't dig or chew through that. My fence is 4 feet tall. I have posts that will take this up to 6 feet in case I needed to put a wire or something across there to keep the deer out. I've been here 5 years. The only time I get deer in the garden is when I forget to close my gate and leave it open. A tip, when a deer comes up to your fence, it's going to look in, it's going to smell things. That's how it knows where food is, has a great sense of smell. It's not going to want to jump over this because of all this debris in the deer's mind is sitting right here. And they're like people. If they're going to leap over, they want a safe place to land. So if you plant and set up things along the inside of your fence, it's less likely a deer's going to want to jump over here and get into your garden. If you have, a space like this, if it jumps over the fence and can land right there, wide open, it's a nice landing field basically for it. It can just land, it'll be okay. It doesn't want to break an ankle, just like you and I don't want to break an ankle. We're also going to go over to the greenhouse. Snow is here. What can you do? I've been talking about putting the beds to rest, getting them set up, and they are pretty much where I want them to be. These are blueberries. If you have organic granular fertilizer, you can certainly scatter it around here now. Same for your blackberries. Let that kind of just break down, wash into the soil. Blueberries do like a little bit more acidity. You can do a solution of white vinegar and water. Actually, I believe I have a video on it, but it's a low amount, maybe 10% vinegar, 90% water. Water around the plant, don't water on top of the plant. Even though things are kind of dormant now, probably wouldn't hurt it, but you don't want to put the vinegar on the plant. That will help the pH go down, make the soil more acidic. Blueberries tend to do a little bit better. I do that. I use a water-soluble fertilizer that has more acidity, or I will do the vinegar trick once or twice over a year, and it's just right in the space there. That just helps the plant process the nutrients in the soil better. Just a quick look. This is the fruit area. Going to be pruning the trees back. There's lots of growth in there. These trees got huge. They were supposed to stay a little bit smaller. And you can see this one here, I got to cut out a lot of the branches because I want it open. I want a lot of air flowing through there. And that's probably the biggest principle as I learned about pruning, is you want to open the inner canopy, have just light come in, have airflow, and that really helps deal with diseases. Containers, they're always looking good. Highly recommend the green stalk garden towers. You can find them in my video description. This color is still available. I'll be harvesting out most of the lettuce on here. The freezes are coming. The lettuce won't last much longer, maybe a couple more weeks. These are beans. If you are going to harvest any kind of bean, you just let them dry on a pod. They're going to look moldy. That's fine. These are all wet right now. So you want these to be dry. So a good 3 days of no snow or rain. Come harvest the beans. I'll be doing a video on that. Strawberries are covered, and just FYI, I'm in Maryland Zone 7. I leave my strawberries out 24/7. I don't protect them. We get freezing days in the 20s, several consecutive days. We may get nights in the teens. Strawberries can really handle the cold. They can go down below 0 degrees, but if you're somewhere in the teens and the 20s, strawberries usually do fine outdoors. If for some reason, you get, let's just say 4 weeks of 15-degree temperatures, that may harm the plants. Our temperatures fluctuate. In a week or so, consecutively of those temperatures is okay, can warm up again, and then the temperatures can come back. I do like the snow. One of the things for December is I do just like watching the change. I call this the bare bones or the skeleton garden, because aside from the cool weather crops, things are just kind of sitting and waiting. The corn is a good example. And I will just kind of contemplate and think about things and how I want to change stuff up for next year. I've been, talking about that. You've seen videos on all the trellising. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Do want to show you an arugula plant that is amazing. It is just starting to flower as it gets warm here, then it gets cold. So the process is really slow, but this plant is huge. Growing arugula, single plant, right there, it seeded itself. That's just endless arugula, basically. Smaller plants there. It grows slow and steady, but it is really loving going from summer, August, into December, and it's just flourishing. That's all arugula in there too. Eventually it's going to die out. When it gets that big, it does get a little bit more bitter. It's not as kind of nutty, and sometimes it's a little more peppery, but the cold weather really changes the flavor of arugula, spinach, chard, all your cool weather crops. That is the remains of turnips. They're going to be fine. I'll be harvesting the rest of them out. When it gets to be temperatures in the low 20s, mid 20s, and your root crops freeze through, like I have radishes right over there, the bulb itself can't really freeze through. It'll be okay, but it kind of gets mushy, and it's not the best. It's soft. It's not really mushy. It's just soft. They can take a frost on the outside of the radish, on the outside of the turnip, but when it freezes solid through, it pretty much means time is up. So I'm not going to be growing or seed starting, let's get it right, direct seeding any more radishes into the ground now, because it's just too cold. They may go into my cold frame. We'll walk by there in a little bit. I am really just opening up space. This all has to come out. This is where I collected tomato seeds. And things look good. That's different broccoli. And actually I thought it was, of course, that it was, now I forgot. So kale, collards. I thought it was collards. It's not. It's broccoli straight back there. Some cauliflower over there. And they are starting to form heads. When the crowns are really small, they can do pretty well with freezing temperatures. Like, they're not rubbery, they're not beat up or anything like that. If they get larger and we get prolonged freezing consecutively, not just at night, but through the day, that's gonna all get rubbery and it's not gonna be as good. Purple kale, purple cabbage, doing pretty good. It's probably gonna head up just fine. It's really, really sturdy, and it is one crop that can take the cold better. It doesn't get soft, it doesn't get beat up. As long as the ground, top inch or so, has a chance to kind of freeze and thaw, and doesn't stay frozen solid for weeks, it's going to really just keep producing and, well, keep growing until it gets to a nice size head. And I'm kind of out of time. I mean, come January, I'm going to get all those temperatures that really kill everything off. If we come into here, we'll see if it's true. Like, here's a radish. That's a French breakfast, and if I crush it, it's hollow now. So that's because it just froze solid through. It looks okay, when you go in there and you're like, oh, I'm gonna have a nice radish, but they're damaged from the freeze. More turnips, more lettuces. This is where maybe I will put in some containers. If I open this up, there's holes in here because I grow my super hots. I put them into a sunken cold frame to overwinter. But I could lay containers in here, flats in here, maybe grow spinach, maybe grow radishes. But I'm kind of looking forward to doing other things. I don't feel like I need to extend the garden anymore, grow out here. I really like this peaceful walk. Like, I think it's just beautiful. Just coming out here, hearing the snow crunch under your feet. Maybe bring out a cup of coffee if I didn't have the camera in my hand. But I'm constantly thinking of how I'm going to redesign things. Like, I think I'm going to remove this cattle panel. I'll use it somewhere else. Because this could be a good section for tomatoes, even though I have one over here to my left. Or something else where I just don't need the shade. And again, I'm thinking about what do I want to grow next year in less variety quantity, meaning I'm not going to have 15, 20 different varieties of peppers. But what can I grow that I'm going to really use more and can and store and preserve more so that I can be eating into January from what I preserve? And I'll still be growing peppers in here. This is like the best way to grow peppers. There's all different varieties, not collecting the seeds. Got everything I needed already out of there, but I think it's 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 14 containers in there. Bottoms are open, have plenty of videos on it. Sunken containers if you want to look that up. They grow extremely well there. Every container has 2 plants. Behind there is the asparagus. What I'm actually going to do, to be honest with you, is I may be taking, I don't know why I would lie to you, but if I don't move this to somewhere else, I'm going to be cutting this down the middle, and it's going to leave 1, 2, 3, 4 holes, something like that. And instead of weaving the asparagus through that wire, I'm going to lay the cattle panel, the cut cattle panel, flat halfway up the post, and I'm just going to, so this will be, you know, laying parallel to the ground, and the asparagus will grow through here, and it will help keep the asparagus from falling over and just flopping around in the garden. So I'll be able to better control that space. So we'll see. I'll be doing a video on it if I get to that. I mean, everything else, you know, is asleep. Still thinking about what to do in here. I'll be clearing all this out. There's different plants, mints and stuff growing in there. Gonna keep that. That's a bug hotel. Bugs and good stuff still like to go in there and live, lay eggs, etc. But I'm thinking, and that's what I encourage people to do, is just use their imagination, think about how they want to transform things over to something different. I've talked a lot about the muscadines right there. You can see all that growth. They have to be hacked by a good, definitely 50%, but probably 75%. Remove all the growth that's just, you know, blended and mixed into the cattle panel there. Cut it way back, just leave a couple vines. All that new growth is what's going to grow the future muscadines. Going to be doing something in there. I'm just not going to duplicate what I do out here on a small scale. I'm going to, you know, maybe do pumpkins. I'm really trying to figure out what I want to grow in these spaces. That fence on that side, you can see it's a picket fence, and rabbits just walk right in there. There's nothing along that fence to keep the rabbits out. So I might do lots of onions. Like, I'm really going to grow what I like. Potatoes, garlic, onions, pumpkins, more melons. Could just be adding to making this garden a little bit less of a demonstration, how it's all broken up. I mean, you know, I've been doing that for a while. Make it more functional for what I want to grow and eat. But I'll be teaching off of all of that. So the same thing's going to happen. Just want to change it up. After 10 years, it can get a bit monotonous, still enjoyable, still have a passion for it, but starting over and kind of going through the process, I'm kind of just getting tired of it. So I want to kind of spice up the videos a little bit more. I have a plan to help communities, neighborhoods build neighborhood gardens, not just, you know, a community garden, not just everybody has their own garden. And I'll be doing a whole video on it, and I would love your help in your community, or, you know, if you find people that want to build gardens in their community. What I want to do is help people isolate less, get out of their houses, meet their neighbors, talk about growing food as a neighborhood, as a community. And everybody doesn't have to do the same thing. Everybody doesn't need a garden like mine, and everybody doesn't have to grow tomatoes and peppers. I talked a little bit about this before. Somebody could just be, you know, the person who wants to grow compost, who wants to make compost. Somebody may just want to donate land and a couple neighbors can grow food. Somebody may just want to grow tomatoes. But the whole idea is how the neighborhood, you know, can come outside, talk, create a vision of food gardens in the neighborhood, share the food, grow together, and just have, I hope, a better quality of life. So I think that will be kind of fun. Let's go over to the greenhouse. Now, this was a surprise snow, so it's very, very slippery because the ground's not frozen. I have clay soil just about everywhere, so it's kind of muddy and slippery, so hopefully I don't wipe out here. In the greenhouse, getting ready, like I've been telling you, for the plant sale, doing some experiments. Things look pretty good. Just want to show you up close And more importantly, as the door squeaks closed, it's unheated. These cells are freezing solid and then they defrost. But I want to just give you a close-up. You know, having some algae problems, maybe I'll put a fan in here. Not sure if it really matters because things are just staying damp. That's purple coneflower dealing with the freeze just fine. That's peppermint dealing with the solid freeze just fine. We have catnip in here. These are weeds. Let's pull those out. Might as well weed this one too. This is thyme. And these are just ways that I'm growing the perennial herbs. The the chives are doing really good. Some lemon balm back there. This is a mix of a new plot of oregano. Oregano is struggling a little bit because I think the soil gets a little bit moldy. I'll give you an example in a second. This is sorrel. And the whole point is everything that I mentioned can take a frost and a freeze. So some of the oregano is growing nicely up here. Some of it died off. If oregano stays too wet along the surface or throughout the starting mix, it does die back. So you do want the oregano to have a drying period. Same with most of the plants that I'm showing you here. Sage is doing really well. It's a little bit hard to control in a greenhouse because the temperatures are staying so cold that even after I water it, and I haven't watered now for 7 days, it looks like everything was just watered. So some of the strategy when you're growing in a greenhouse is regulating the moisture. As it gets colder, everything is going to stay really damp and the surface is going to stay moist, and you have more of a chance for fungus and problems like that. All right, let's go on back out here. All my raspberry plants, those are black raspberries down there. The goji berries doing just fine. I mean, look. And again, we're having freezing temperatures. Here's a mistake. I had that vermiculite sitting under the table and I must have pulled it out and left it there, so now it is filled with water. Can I pick this up? Nope, it's going to be a two-hand job. So I'm going to have to let that drain now. What a waste. Strawberries are doing good. These were the strawberries that I just cut and pressed into the soil. Probably 80 to 90% of these are going to survive, so I'll have plenty of transplants to sell. The wind got to this one. Let's take a look. Look at the root system. These had no roots whatsoever. They were just pressed onto there and kept moist. And I guess maybe it's been about 4 weeks later, they are good to go. That root system is strong enough for them to be transplanted into my different containers or their final resting spot to grow and develop. But because it's December, I'm not going to move them now. They're just going to stay there until I'm ready for them come springtime. And you can see more of the deer tracks coming all through here. And we'll just finish up real quick. Coming around this way, compost tumblers. Got those at Tractor Supply. There's no name on there. But I like the size for the tumbler. That's the garden that I'm going to be changing up. More of a shadier area. The mushroom garden, of course. Let's just walk out here to the compost area. And I'm going to end on compost again. If you have the space, you don't need much. Space like that works perfectly fine. You don't need to cover it. You want that to stay moist. And just set up your piles. I've really filled up most of my bins. I didn't really get to these, but that's okay. I use them differently. I use them more in the spring. But all my pens are just filled high with leaves and grass. And this is going to just be wonderful stuff. Not come spring, but towards the end of the year. But I have compost in different places that I'll be able to set up my spring garden. Especially like right in here, under that mound of snow is a tarp. That's all the compost I'll be using in the spring, while all of this is really breaking down and getting ready. Thanks so much for watching. Composting is king or queen. If you have a chance, try and get it started. It's going to save you so much money, and it's really about supporting the soil, but giving your plants a great place to grow wonderful roots. That's what makes the difference for healthy and strong plants. And you can see the deer just walk all along everything I hear, looking for something to eat. And again, thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. And last thing, those are artichokes right in there. They have grown, again, because our temperature's been warmed at different times. I'm going to cover them with about 12 inches of mulch this week. That will help protect the roots, and next year I'll have my artichokes popping up and doing their thing. Thanks for watching.